Hey guys, I'm back. Wouldn't be alive with Sarah the Pivoter if the IT gremlins didn't attack. So here we go again. Let's try and invite James. Sending. Hey Victor. Hey James, how are you?
Hello, Sarah. How you doing?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Excited to
You're a
be
bit
here.
dark though.
Oh, am I? Well, it's
Yeah,
because
it's
I got
because the window's behind you.
Do you want
We've
me to
got
change
Vivian
that
here.
round?
We've got a lot of people joining.
Oh, it's windows all around me is the problem.
You're surrounded by light.
Hold on. Two
No
seconds.
worries.
Let me readjust this.
I hope you guys
Technical.
don't get motion sickness as James gets his camera set up. Thank you
I should have
everyone for
thought about
joining.
that
I see a
before.
lot of our Retry family on there. There we go.
There we go. Is that better?
Looking good. How are you today? Yeah.
I'm good. I just got back from a meeting across town and had to dry myself off because it's so hot outside. So I
Yeah,
hope I
it's
don't have a sweaty top of lip, but
sweaty
I think I'm
stash.
good. Exactly. How about you? What's been going on with you this morning?
Yeah, today's been good. I've been having a lot of conversations with new clients, and I scared you thinking that this was at 12 o'clock, but I just got excited doing the live with you here today. So thanks for rushing back. I cannot tell your sweaty stash from here, so it's good. We have I would like to introduce you first. So James is a great friend of mine. And as you guys would have seen joining the live, this is all about being a financial creative. So I'm going to let James explain what that is and how he got to where he is today and how the two are not mutually exclusive. So, James, why don't you do
Well,
the honors of introducing yourself? And I don't want to butcher your company name, so I'm going to let you say that.
well, a very kind pre-introduction there. Lots to live up to. I'm afraid I'm going to butcher it myself. What does it mean? Well, I wear two hats basically. I did a double degree in finance and marketing when I was at university a couple of moons ago. And so I was always kind of like torn between both sides, and I wanted to find a way to do both. And started off my career where I got an opportunity within an advertising agency, which unfortunately fell through. And so I came out to Hong Kong and still pursued the marketing route for a year and a half. Realized I wasn't really fulfilled, and so that's when I took an opportunity to move into a family office asset management firm, which is where I am here currently. It's been a hard 2.5 years to establish myself, but things are going well now, and I'm really enjoying it. But about a year ago, my one of my best friends and travel buddies, a guy called Harry McNulty, Salty Nuts is his Instagram handle. If anyone wants to jump on, we had talked about for over a year about creating an agency that focused on giving athletes an avenue after sport and making use of the spotlight that sport provides to give them, options when they finish up so they don't fade into obscurity. Like a lot of athletes, as soon as they finish with
Mm.
sport, whether it's because of injury or just retirement, they just become, folklore and nothing more. So him and I had talked about this for a long time. He's a professional rugby player for Ireland Sevens, was
Amazing.
fortunate enough to go to the Olympics recently and is on, well, and rugby got canned by COVID, was traveling on the World Series. Um, so we talked about it for ages, and
Mm.
it didn't come together until COVID happened, and all of a sudden, sport was killed, and so I pulled in my former strategic marketing professor, a guy called Corey Rubenstein, who's now the CEO of our company, Imaego. He pulled in a friend of his who was a former Wasps player, London Wasps, which is a professional rugby team. and who currently works at a big PR agency in London. And then pulled in two more people. And we have been hitting our heads against the wall for, since March last year, but we really got some traction about 6 months in, and we signed a couple of Olympian athletes, Tom Mitchell, who's the captain of the GB Sevens team, Maria Fay, who just recently got silver at the Olympics, Priscilla Hon, who is a top tennis player. And what we've been doing is we've been doing it slowly because we wanted to get it right. But we've been working with athletes to build personal brands around themselves. And the benefit that we've seen and the results that we've seen have been really, really positive. And what we've been trying to do is create brand partnerships for these athletes that fit into what their own personal values are and also what they are interested in outside of sport. So we consult with them on what they want to do. And then we go out and we find brands that are mutually exclusive to those goals. We turn down a lot of brands and we seek out brands that fit well. So, we've seen a huge amount of results in growing followers. Quite often what would happen is following would drop, especially with, say, Maria Fay, where a lot of her following was male focused. She's a professional beach volleyball player. So the male following kind of dropped when there was less bikini photos going up and more, insightful storytelling going on.
Yeah.
But, then we found that it really exponentially increased and the engagement levels were amazing and the value of the brand partnerships, were better for the brands and also better for the athletes. We were sick of seeing brand partnerships where, people would just be holding a product next to them with a blank stare on their face because they have been paid to, endorse a product. It does nothing for the brand and it does nothing for the person who's endorsing it. So that has been our model in Europe and Australasia and the United States. We run a decentralized agency, meaning we don't have any offices. Our team is spread across London, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, and Los Angeles. And we're able to kick creative concepts other's strengths. When someone, is going to sleep, the concept gets kicked to someone else, and then it cruises around like that. I don't want to go on too much without you asking some questions, but I'll finish off by saying that in Hong Kong, unfortunately, the pool of athletes is a lot smaller. And so what we've done in Hong Kong and what I've been very busy doing here, obviously with the support of my team, is building a B2B creative agency here in Hong Kong. So we've been working with brands here in Hong Kong and really shaking up essentially the advertising and creative space in Hong Kong for videography, but also brand strategy and implementation. So we've had a couple of really big breaks in the last 6 months, and we're working with some really super brands. And the future looks really bright for Imaego, and now it's just about scaling it and managing my time between doing that and my day job here working in finance, which I also love very much.
Yeah, that's where the time blocking comes in. And I love that you basically couldn't find the opportunity that you really enjoyed, so you went out and created one. And that is a fantastic message to people, because if there's space and you feel that you can fill that niche and bring something together, then why can't you? I think typically people look at finance and creativity as like you get one or the other, and you can't be creative if you're in finance. And I think what you're doing with the athletes is amazing, because a lot of times they, as you said, disappear and we don't know what happens to them, or they're just like, hi, this is my thing, buy it, but there's no story. And everything is related to values. And so, as you mentioned with the volleyball player, her male following kind of dropped off, but then now she has a following that's really aligned with who she is and what she stands for. And so therefore the reach and influence will actually be greater than just, whether it's a guy or a gal looking at her in a bikini, they'll actually be there for a different reason.
Yeah, absolutely. You've nailed it there.
Yeah. What has been so you mentioned in Hong Kong, there's obviously a smaller pool of athletes, but do you think in Hong Kong as well, the KOL culture is part of the reason why there's this tendency to just promote products because it's bringing in revenue, even if they're not aligned with your brand?
Yeah, I mean, Hong Kong has a very strong luxury goods market. And the KOL scene here is predominantly, local focus. There's not many Western KOLs here, and I think that's probably somewhere that we need to improve on, is translating more into the local market, because we have China on our doorstep, and that's a massive market. So for Imaego, that's something that we're definitely looking at going forward, is partnering. We're actually in talks with a KOL agency here in Hong Kong about consulting with their KOL talent on what good content is, and how to create value in a way that is not what I would say just flogging a product,
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter who you are, like, or how big your influence is. Like, all of us have influence. All of us, if we are using a product and sharing it authentically, then we're going to influence people around us. And if the story that you're telling and the products that you're using are authentic, then you're going to have a positive impact, and ultimately going to promote a brand in a much more authentic way.
yeah, I agree. I think it's, human beings connect through story. And that's why, if we sense something is off, or that somebody's doing something just because they're paid to do it, then we're not influenced to buy because we don't trust it. We think it's just paid advertising. Even as an example, me and my, measly, I don't know how many followers I have, I put up a story the other day being a total dork about some dark chocolate covered or filled pretzels. And they were so delicious. And I was just, talking about them. And then I had 20 people message me saying it's out of stock on iHerb. So I'm going to take credit for that. But,
Yeah.
it was just me being me and very excited about this snack. And so obviously I'm not
Yeah.
being paid for that, but that had an impact. And so
Yeah.
I like that you guys are aligning the values and looking to add value rather than just sell a product.
Yeah, we're just sick of the bullshit. I mean, to be honest, excuse my French.
You can swear, it's
It's
okay.
yeah, it's just like, it's just sickening how much of it is out there. It's just fake and it's nonsense.
Yeah,
So yeah, we will pick and choose brand partnerships, and if the paycheck is massive, sometimes it can be hard to turn down, a paycheck like that. But
of course.
you have to, the more you turn down that are not in line with your values, and the more that you promote them really well, then you're going to shift that balance over time.
Yeah.
And so, my hope is that we can continue to set an example in doing that, and then, kind of filter out some of the nonsense.
Yeah, that's great. I think this is a good example of what tastes good right now versus what's going to last longer, right? Someone wants to use the analogy of like chewing gum. If you get, those big blocks of chewing gum as a kid, they were super sweet and sugary, but they only lasted about, 5 minutes, and then you just had rubber in your mouth. And then
Yeah,
you get like Wrigley's chewing gum or something, or Juicy Fruit, right? And it lasts for an hour or whatever it is. Is
yeah,
that opportunity cost of you taking this thing now that takes your time and capacity going to mean that in the long term you're just constantly spinning your wheels. And that's applicable
Mm,
to any business, right? We've talked about that in the past in mastermind and things like that.
hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's a short-term, short-term pain, but it's not so painful, but short-term pain, long-term gain kind of approach.
absolutely. So now in the financial market space, I know you've been kind of shaking some things up there as well. Can you share a little bit about what you've been doing and how people can get inspired? Because a lot of the followers that were commenting leading up to this were saying that they feel very stifled creatively in their roles, and they're probably in banking or some sort of financial service for the ones based in Hong Kong. What would you say to them, and how have you found this area?
Well, I work at a asset management firm that's also a family office, and then we also do a lot of retirement planning and long-term investing. But financial services as a whole is probably the most poorly communicated industry that there is. It's boring, it's daunting. There's a lot of scamming and a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of financial products that lock you in for 25 years, and then at the end of 25 years, oh, sorry, I don't know what's going on there. It's probably another email coming in. At the end of 25 years, you've got really nothing to show for it. And these
Yeah,
financial products do more for the people that sell them than the people that buy them. And for me, that is unacceptable. That is not what I'm about. And so
yeah,
taking my marketing background, what we're trying to do at Imaego, and the wheels are turning in making this happen as well, is telling the story of financial services, humanizing financial services, making it less daunting, and trying to change people's relationship with money. You know, a lot of people,
yeah,
have this experience, and probably, in Hong Kong, it doesn't help that their relationship with money probably isn't a very good one. It's either you have it or you don't. And if you have it, you're trying not to lose it. Um, and so,
yep,
what we're doing is we're talking with banks, and ultimately, with my firm, I want, to communicate that it shouldn't be so scary. And, with the right financial planning, you can have a very comfortable life. It starts today. It can't start, sometime in the future. But with simple numeracy education, we can achieve great things. And with banking, it's really about humanizing the banks and telling their story in a more effective manner. And that comes from change with them as well.
yeah,
And it also, there's a whole bunch of different financial products that are coming onto the market that do good. Like there's ESG funds that are coming
yes,
around now that are more focused on the environment and sustainable financing. And those products are no longer just pouring money into a hole and throwing and hoping. That there are ESG funds that are achieving amazing returns for the people that invest in them, and then there's all sorts of new ideas like crypto and
hmm,
blockchain technology, and these kind of topics, like, they can seem very, very very hard to grasp, but that's because if you say something really quickly, then it might sound good if you have no idea what's going on. But if you
yeah,
really slow down and narrow in on key points of how these things can benefit you, you can really change someone's perspective and make it less of a scary kind of concept. No matter if you're a teacher or an engineer, or whatever your profession is, there is education that can take place to make things a whole lot easier for you.
Yeah, I love that because you're right. It really is this. You've got the banks and these financial institutions where people feel like there's no other option. And then there's crypto, which people don't understand. And then you have, of course, all these scammers that, contact people through social media or through emails or, the Prince of Nigeria has left you all this money. And so unfortunately, people fall into these traps because they don't know. And there's no education in the school system. Even I think about where I went to school, I didn't learn how to do my taxes. I didn't learn about any of these concepts. I had to go and learn it myself. And if we change that, we make it less scary, then the story changes, the narrative changes. But it's a bit on us as individuals as well to not tell ourselves that we can't do something or we can't understand it,
Yeah.
as well as on the firms themselves to make it understandable so that we don't end up with the GFC again, or people with mortgages they can't afford and products that do absolutely nothing for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of trust that's been lost over the
Yeah,
last 20 odd years, you know. There's a whole lot of, people that have just been out to take advantage. And I think that modern technology is starting to change, the way that people manage their finances. And, people is kind of waking up to the fact that why should you charge me a huge amount of money to move my wealth around the world, and that, education is a big part of that. And I think the future looks bright for financial services. And, if we can be a part of communicating more effectively how people can benefit themselves, rather than relying on big institutions, then, ultimately we've done out what we've set to do. And the byproduct of that, of doing a good job, and by being ethically minded in the way that we go about it, will result in us being successful as well. But
yeah,
it's a product of doing a good job rather than what we're setting out to do.
yeah. That's great. Yeah, and also being sustainable about it, right? Making sure again that your runway is there and that you can enjoy this level of comfort in your life, long term, not just today or tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for people that might be, let's say, working in finance and they feel stifled creatively, what would you say to them and how they can start to change the narrative in their respective firms? Whether they engage your company or firms like it, what are some of the things that they can start doing to nurture that creativity within themselves and within the teams?
Well, I heard there's a guy, he's from the States, originally from India, called Naveed. And
Okay.
he has a podcast, that it's escaping me right now. But if people look up Naveed, and the podcast, he's basically taken a tweet storm, and gone deep into how to get rich, basically. And the title of it is quite provocative.
Yeah.
Um, but the content is far from arrogant and far from being detrimental. And he basically says that you should have three things in your life that make you money, that you enjoy doing. You should have a hobby that allows you to make money. You should have um, you should have a sport or something like that that keeps you fit, and then you should have your job. So you should be able to like make money off of at least two things, and have one thing that is for your well-being.
Yeah.
So, for people who feel like they're stifled in financial services, um, I've got a friend that recently took up photography. He's in a hedge fund. And the same guy, after he picked up photography, he's feeling a lot more creatively inspired now,
Yeah.
wants to get into creating his own jewelry. And this
Wow.
guy is an
Amazing.
execution trader at a hedge fund. So, it doesn't matter how little time you've got. If you have something that you're passionate about, then, you can turn it into something that you can make some money out of. But also, like, you
Absolutely.
can pursue it as being, a bit of a balancing ball for what you do in your everyday life. For me, having being involved in a creative agency, startup creative agency, is almost like a yin and yang to my financial life.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, within financial services, I can go to my team at Imaego, and I see that Tane has just joined. So shout out to Tane, who's one of our key team fellows at Imaego and does an amazing job. And working with those guys, whether it's like an hour or two, a day, or jumping on a call like after work or whatever, finding the time in between. I go back, I take off the financial hat and I put back on, the creative hat, and interchange it multiple times during the day. And it keeps things fresh for me. It keeps things, there's always something challenging that is around the corner that is not just, finance related, or if, we're really going hard on a brand partnership, then I might feel a little bit overwhelmed within that side, and I go to the other side. So it's constantly
Yeah.
keeping things fresh. And you know in terms of fitness, I know you're holistic in what you do, and in terms of fitness, the body wants to be kept guessing all the time. And so it's why should it be any
Absolutely.
different for your brain? You should have things that
Yeah.
keep you in always trying new things and learning. And I think that that's very important, and especially in a place like Hong Kong. I mean, I haven't left Hong Kong in
Yes.
almost 2 years, and it's a bit of a fishbowl here. I feel like I'm hitting the sides of the tank. But having
Yeah.
these two things in my life has meant that to get through that. And New Zealand is very far away, but it's a lot more manageable. Having that kind of balance.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. That's amazing because I think what a lot of people try to do is find that perfect job which can satisfy all these different needs that they have. And, it's very, very rare that we'll get our ikigai. We're going to get that sweet spot of what we love to do, what we get paid to do, what the world needs, and, what we have been doing. So by creating this balance for yourself, you have the ability to keep it fresh. And I'm
Hmm.
sure when you get stuck in an area at work, you go and put on your creative hat and let that flow for a bit. It helps you to solve the problems. And so
Yeah,
some people, though, of course, they're very money focused. And so they think, well, if it's not paying me money, then it's not valuable. And they couldn't be further from the truth because if it's refilling your energy center or giving you skills that eventually could turn into profit, then it's definitely worth pursuing. And as you said, our brain also needs to be kept guessing, just like the body. If you do the same, how many people do you know who have been benching or squatting the same number for like 5 or 10 years? Because that's all they
no,
do.
yeah,
They don't do anything else, right? They
yeah,
don't incorporate any other form of training. Our brains are the same. If we
yeah.
dig those grooves too deep, then it's also very hard to change,
Hmm.
which is why last year
Yeah.
was very difficult for many people.
No, absolutely, I agree. And I had the same kind of thing with training and fitness. I was 20 kilos heavier than I was now, and I was going to the gym every single day.
Yeah.
And it was well, I was doing the same shit every day, you know, chest, bench, da 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 da, and it wasn't until like I got a bit of a different perspective through a gym here called ATP Fitness, and they showed me completely what I was doing wrong and kept my body guessing. And now it's like I don't do the same workout at all, like every day. It's like
Yeah.
swimming or running or gym or, all sorts of different stuff.
Yoga.
Yoga, of course, which we'll be doing tomorrow morning, I'm
Yes.
very much looking forward to.
Me as
So
well.
yeah, keeping the body guessing and keeping the mind guessing, I think is really the key to having a sustained workflow,
Yeah.
and not burning out.
And I think finding what you highlighted before about how they're, finance and creativity, they're two very different hats. That's important as well to have the difference because one of the things I realized, as I started my own business, and my business now is to help guide people on coaching and personal development, all of this neuroscience. I used to read and study this stuff in my spare time because it was my passion and I really enjoyed it. So before, when I was working in my corporate job, which yes, that was an element of it, but I was still very much involved with operations or dealing with customers, and very demanding clients at a high level. You
Hmm.
then go home and you read about these things, and it feels different. When it became my job, then all of a sudden reading those things and watching those documentaries was no longer enjoyable. It was just
Yeah.
work.
Hmm.
And so I had to pivot and find another hobby that would be able to allow me to take the foot off the pedal of that area and do something different. Yoga was one of those hobbies for me, and it really helped me reset myself, reset my mind, incorporating the breath work. And now I actually am a yoga teacher as well. So it did turn into something that has also now become a revenue stream because I pursued it, and I recognized that it was good for me, and so I kept with it. And so that could be anything. It could be painting. I know a lot of people have set up their own art studios. I just went and did a art expressive therapy session with someone who used to be in insurance in the past, and so now she does this, and she brings it to the corporate environment, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of, and yes, Victor is my yoga teacher. He's on here watching us right now, so shout out to Victor.
Hey, Victor.
But all of these hobbies that people have, they absolutely can turn into something later. But even if they don't, they're what keeps you going. It's the
Yeah.
lubrication to the gears that keeps them turning.
Yeah. I mean, even if they don't make you money, they bring you satisfaction. So, you
Yeah, it
know,
brings you joy.
if you can become the best at doing it, the best at anything is going to be financially rewarded for it. So it's about mastering that craft, but don't master it for the sake of making money because you might not enjoy it anymore. So do it for, why you love it, and then, financial gain will come as a result.
Yeah. And I think it's that I like to use, ice cream as an example. We have a preference for our favorite flavor, but we don't always even want that. I love chocolate ice cream, but I may not always go for chocolate. Maybe it's summer, it's really hot outside, and I want lemon sorbet that time, right? So being okay to have different flavors of success and different flavors at different times is also quite critical. I think people get very rigid. One of the questions was, how are finance and creativity mutually beneficial at all? But I think you've demonstrated how much they can support each other. And, we need to spark our brains in different ways. Even people, let's say they took up baking or cooking. I play with Legos over the holidays, not holiday, but COVID, right? Putting together those little Lego pieces challenges my brain in a way that I don't use every single day.
Mm,
And while I'm not necessarily uh, learning, something on a textbook, I'm learning how to
yeah,
problem solve, how to use context clues, right? It's the same thing for kids as we're learning. It's important for us to play. It's important for us to do different activities to stimulate all these areas of our brain.
yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Amazing.
Hit
So
me with
what
another one, Sarah.
so what big projects do you guys have in the pipeline for Omega? Omega. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it in one. It's Imaego. And I can give a little bit of a context into what the meaning of Imago is.
Yeah, that'd be
So
great.
Imago is the process of when a caterpillar or a moth changes into a butterfly. So it's the process of change. And that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to change people's perspective and, add skills to be able to create change themselves, empower change themselves. There's no point
Love
in
it.
in telling someone how to do something. The best thing to do is to give them the skills to be able to change themselves. So
Exactly.
that's a little bit of context behind the name, and it's actually spelled Imago. But when we looked at the spelling, I don't know. We came to a conclusion that if there was like a capital I, it looked like LMFAO, And we were like, we can't have a company that, is an acronym for laughing my ass off. So we added an E after A and made it an ash because name was, had just named his son Ash, and we thought it was kind of funny and a bit topical, and we'd been seeing that symbol like starting to appear a little bit more in branding, and so
Yeah.
with branding, it's nice if you can take your name and really narrow it down to a single symbol or letter or something like that. And so that's why we chose to do that. And what have we got in the pipeline? So we're now working with Tatler on a number of different projects,
Amazing.
which has been amazing to work with them. We just did a campaign with Mercedes, and a lovely lady who's super inspiring, pianist who only has 3 fingers total and is
Wow.
a unbelievable pianist. So it was the perfect first project for us to work with them because it was telling her story and
Mm.
how she's inspired and the work that she does in teaching other kids and young adults who also have physical disabilities how to overcome them and play beautiful music. So that will be launching soon. We've also worked with a disruptive beverage company called Chateau Highball, which I know you really enjoyed when I brought a couple of bottles onto the junk.
Yeah.
That's a gin and tonic that's bottled in like a champagne bottle, has the pop of champagne, and the taste just tastes beautiful as well.
That's
And then
amazing.
we've got a couple of interesting projects that are happening in the next month. One with a company called Secret Theatre, and Peninsula. And then there's a couple more that I can't really speak about, but
Of course.
we are working with KOL agencies across Australia, UK, and Hong Kong.
Mhm.
So that is well underway. We've got a massive list of really exciting athletes that we're going to be working with soon. We were, we didn't have the manpower to take on too many athletes because, as I
Mm.
said before, we wanted to narrow our focus and make sure that we were doing a good job. And so that's why we kept it, we put a cap on how many athletes we worked with within our first year. And now that we're figuring out how to basically streamline the process and manage it more effectively. Now the exciting stuff happens because
Yeah.
this is no longer a startup business where it's a question of, is this going to work? It's now a question of just putting in the work.
Yeah.
And with the team that we've got around the world and building out more of an on-the-ground team here in Hong Kong, all we need now is people, more people, and the work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So we've built up a really amazing bank of content on the B2B side, and the results that we've gotten with the athletes that we're working with has been super positive. So really, as I just said, like the work speaking for itself, the
Yeah.
the phones are ringing, and
That's great. You've got a
we are.
fantastic client list as well.
Yeah, we
Well
do.
done.
We have a really
Yeah.
amazing client list. We have some really amazing up and coming projects. It's a little bit of shame that you have to have the confidentiality with that, but it
Yeah.
is what it is, and and
It'll come
and
out.
and that's
We'll see
it
it.
will come out. It will come out eventually. It will speak for itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're excited about the future, and having that global decentralized model. Our aim is to kick some of these big agencies up the bum and out of bed.
Yeah.
And basically be like, you guys have been dropping the ball with cookie cutter solutions for far too long, charging far too much money.
Yeah.
And we're able to charge far less, and provide the same kind of value and have global perspective. So yeah, I think the
Amazing.
future of decentralized kind of models is coming around the corner.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, time will tell. Time will tell. And that's why I needed you for that time blocking. And now that we've started
Yes.
doing that, like I'm
We'll do
managing my
another
time a lot
session.
better. And yeah, I think my team is a lot more appreciative of the fact that I'm able to, balance things a lot better.
Good. That's awesome. And yeah, I love how you guys came up with the name. That's a great story behind why. When you empower somebody else to take action for themselves, I mean, that's the first thing I thought of when you were talking about the athletes, right? Teaching them what is a good story, what's not, and how can they be authentic so that they actually feel like they should be doing that, right? And they're not just a washed up athlete that has to take, push product, as you said. And so then they start to get creative and they start to come up with ideas and solutions as well. And this decentralized model, I think I've experienced it a lot at work, but it will take time culturally for some places to adapt to that, just because by nature of the power distance between leaders and subordinates and things like that, like countries like Japan, it'll be very,
Yeah,
very difficult. Even some traditional businesses here in Hong Kong. But hey, that's what being a mover and a shaker is all about. And at the end of the day, we empower the team and the people to make their own decisions. Then you waste a lot less money, and they have that confidence and trust, and they sometimes they might make the wrong decision, but it was at least a decision, rather than somebody getting frustrated and being on the holding line, waiting.
yeah,
And so for those of you guys watching who might be looking for a job, you can probably reach out to James soon, because he's going to be looking to expand his team.
yeah.
So
Can yeah, definitely reach out to me. We're always looking for exciting people, and the whole thing about Imaego is giving people opportunities. And because we work on basically a freelance basis at this point in time, you know there's certain jobs and certain campaigns that are suited to different people. Like when I
absolutely.
first got into the partnership, with one of our clients, they said to me, you know, do you only want to take high level budgets? And I said, no, we'll take it all, because
Yeah.
there's certain jobs where I can make use of a director, a producer, multiple cameramen, whole lots of different levels of talent. And then there's other jobs where, I know exactly someone who can fulfill that role. And, maybe it's only a budget of like 5 grand or 8 grand or something like that. And, I know there's someone out there that deserves that opportunity and deserves to put that kind of work to their name. And so if we can be a facilitator of that and give them the opportunity to do that, then why don't we just connect the dots? So with,
Yeah.
things like that, where it's a much smaller kind of budget, we just will be like single out, be like, right, there's this guy called Alvis that I worked with um, recently on the Mercedes campaign. And, the next time we have like a smaller kind of budget, I'm just going to basically give it straight to him, and, to make it commercially viable, take like 10% or something like that, just something small, makes it worth, facilitating these kind of movements. But that's what it's about. And then all of a sudden you've got this massive network of people that want to work on Imaego projects because it's exciting and it's fresh. And you get to work with some talented people. So yeah, a slice of a watermelon rather
I
than the
love that.
whole of a
It
grape
keeps
is something that I always like to say. It's a big part of how I
I've
how
never
I
heard that before.
operate
I'm gonna have
business.
to write that down.
It's
Slice
how
of
I
a
do
watermelon
business
instead.
rather than the whole of a grape. Yeah, and I try to
Yeah, that's a
I
great
try to
phrase.
keep in mind when working within finance, but also within the creative world as well. Share the love, and then the love will come back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is not a zero-sum game. If the entire pie grows, then we each get a little bit more of the pie. And so I think that's a great. You keep it fresh and you make sure, I like to say, you put the right person in the right seat on the right bus, right? And so sometimes they might be great for a project, but they're not great for a long-term contract, or, you know, they're really good at one very specific thing in a niche area. And so highlighting people where they shine instead of trying to force them into an area where they're mediocre is always the better route.
Yeah, yeah. Managing people rather than, executing egos and, trying to put people into a box that they don't fit in. There's always going to be something that someone is suited to. And it's
Yeah.
just about identifying what that is and, having that, giving that person the confidence to put their hand up and be like,
Yes.
you know, I do well in this kind of situation, and be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'll keep you in mind for something that fits, what you're good
Absolutely.
at.
Being able to articulate not only what you're good at, but what you want. I think that's another factor that in success, you have people achieving things, you have them earning awards, making money, getting promotions, and they feel really hollow and empty because it's not actually what they want, but they
Hmm.
can't even tell you what they want. So they can't quantify if they're successful. And this is the story for a lot of people, right? Especially like the early go-getters, early achievers, they spin their wheels chasing or doing what they think, you know, is glamorous and will bring in the most revenue or the most praise, or what have you. When really, if they took a step back and sat down to define what it could look like, if they were really owning their power and doing what they were good
Hmm.
at,
Yeah.
um, you know, we'd have a very different world. But we're moving in that direction.
Slowly. It's a slow process. It can't be done overnight,
Slowly.
and it just takes people
No,
who are willing to, question the way that we do things. Um, yeah, to make it happen.
absolutely. A good teacher will tell you why, and a good teacher will the better teacher will tell you why not, right? But
Yeah.
always asking questions and challenging things, and it may not come easy for people depending on how they grew up, but starting to question, you know, why do I like time blocking? What do I spend my time on, and why am I spending my time on this activity? So many of us get into this routine and we do things mindlessly and we don't even understand why we do them. But when we actually
No.
stop and look at it, then we can start to bring awareness and pivot into new areas.
Always plugging.
All
Nice,
right. Well, this
nice. I
has been
love that.
amazing, James. I mean, yeah, I feel like we could talk for hours. Well, and we can, I know we can. But Instagram will start to shut us off in a little while. There's some
So
limits on
they
the
shut you
IGTV
off.
lives. At
How long
59
do they?
minutes. Yeah, it stops
Jeez,
before an
why?
hour. Yeah.
Why? They want what's good content is good content. We'll have
Let's
to have a
let's let's
word.
shake it up. Let's go challenge
Yeah,
Instagram.
we'll have to have a word about that.
Absolutely. I mean, we still have a bit of time, but I'm just watching the clock. We've got about 12 minutes before they boot us
Okay.
out.
Well,
But
let me know when I can do the shameless plug on every single business that I'm involved in.
why don't you do that now? But first, before you do that, I've taken a lot of notes. I'm going to send you a caption that we can put in here for others. I see Chambers has shared a YouTube link for a 3-minute listen, so I'll also send that out to you so you can see it. Um, but if you, before you do the shameless plug, what's one piece of advice that you have for people when we're talking about being a financial creative?
Ooh, you put me on the spot there. Hmm. Well, because if I don't do this, being financial and being creative completely goes down the drain pipe, I would say keep yourself fit and healthy. Like as soon as I stop going to the gym, as soon as I stop running, as soon as I stop, meditating, and that might not be for everyone, but like basically as soon as I stop physical activity, my brain shuts down, my motivation shuts down, and you
Mm,
can't be creative and you can't be motivated to solve the problems that you need to solve within the financial world if you are not healthy and fit. And I've
Absolutely.
had
Movement
to,
is
you know,
medicine.
it's a painful reminder, like every single year, I guarantee you, every single year, I drop the ball for, you know, maybe a month out of the year. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but, you know, I always actually, our friend Fiona loves this analogy that I came up with. It's almost like a fog. And, you know, when everything is going really well, the fog is like miles and miles and miles behind us, and it's everything is great. And then it's like we're running through a field and we come across like a cottage in the middle of nowhere, and we stop in there and it's warm and there's drinks and there's food and everything and it's comfortable. And then all of a sudden we look around and the fog has surrounded us completely. And it doesn't matter what direction you run in, you just run in one direction and eventually you will clear the fog. And that is like what you know, keeping yourself fit does. And as
Mm.
soon as you become stagnant and comfortable, all of a sudden you'll be enveloped in fog. And whether that's fatigue, whether that's, you know, lack of creativity, the fog can represent anything. But
Yeah.
you know, it's about keeping that fog well behind you and topping up, you know, on good habits as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It's very visual. But you know, we were designed to move. We weren't designed to sit. And I also like to use the analogy of like blood in the body. When blood stops moving, we have a problem, right? When it pools in an area and you get this stagnant, and you look at any body of water, if there's no current or if there's no flow, there, you know, moss starts to grow. It
No, it
becomes
becomes
dead, and
stinky.
everything in there is murky and gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Full
So
of
don't let
mosquitoes.
yourself become stinky. Move your body, take a shower, and clean your mind, is what James is saying. Absolutely. I think that's really great advice because that will serve you in good stead no matter how you define yourself by your job or what you're doing, that will always be there to serve you.
100%.
Amazing.
Absolutely
Okay.
agree. Thank you
Now
so
back
much for
over to
having
you.
me,
Do the
Sarah.
shameless plug. Of
I'm just
course.
gonna put across the two websites of the firms that I'm involved in. So
Yes.
Imaego, you can find us on Instagram. It's Imaego with an underscore. Our website is much easier. It's just www.imaego.com. And we have the creatives, the B2B creative website coming along soon. And then on the financial services side, you know, we're providing a lot of education directly at Wealth Management Group, which is wmg.com.hk. Yeah, there's no hard sell. You know, we love what we do. We're a small kind of firm, but we're doing, I'd say, a lot of good. So yeah, if you want to check us out, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, you know,
Amazing.
lovely to speak with you.
Yeah, it was amazing having you, James. Thank you. I've jotted down all the nuggets of wisdom, and some of them have been just as good as my peanut butter pretzel filled nuggets. So they will be in the caption, and I'll make sure that the IG accounts and the websites are also there for people to see.
Amazing. I'm gonna go do some yoga now, and then tomorrow morning we got yoga as well.
Love
So.
it. Yes, 7 to 8 a.m.
All right, Sarah. Thank you so
Thank you,
much for having
James.
me again.
Have a
Take
great
care.
afternoon. Bye.
All right.
Thank
Bye
you guys
bye.
for joining.